Right? Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning, flick on the kettle, blast the heating, charge your phone, maybe even fire up the telly for breakfast news, and at the end of the month, your energy bill reads precisely £0. Nothing. Zilch. Free power flowing through your home like some sort of green energy fantasy. Sound brilliant, doesn't it? Well, Ed Miliband thinks he can make it happen. The Energy Secretary has just unveiled plans to spend £13 billion, yes, billion with a B, transforming millions of British homes into what is calling zero-bill properties. Solar panels on your roof, heat pumps in your garden, batteries storing power like some sort of domestic power station. It's ambitious, it's massive, and according to his critics, it might just be absolutely bonkers. But here's the kicker. Keir Starmer isn't exactly thrilled about it, and rumours are swirling that Miliband's job might be hanging by a thread. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into the most explosive energy policy battle Labour's had since they got into power. Quick favor, if you're loving this, smash that subscribe button. Over 94% of you haven't yet. It's completely free, takes about 2 seconds, and honestly means everything to us. Cheers if you did. Right, back to the chaos. Now, let's talk about Ed Miliband for a moment, shall we? The man who once lost an election after being photographed eating a bacon sandwich in the least flattering way humanly possible. The bloke who stood on stage with a massive limestone slab covered in Labour promises that everyone immediately nicknamed the Ed Stone. Yes, that Ed Miliband is back, is in charge of Britain's energy policy, and is going absolutely full throttle on net zero. And when I say full throttle, I mean the man makes Greta Thunberg look like she's taking a casual Sunday drive. This isn't just about installing a few solar panels here and there. This is about fundamentally transforming how Britain powers itself, one rooftop at a time. The centerpiece of this grand plan is something called the Warm Homes Plan, which sounds lovely and cozy until you see the price tag. 13 billion quid. That's 13,000 million pounds. To put that in perspective, you could buy roughly 26 million bacon sandwiches with that money, though I suspect Ed might pass on that particular investment. The idea is relatively straightforward on paper. The government works with banks and energy companies to provide loans for homeowners to kit out their properties with solar panels, battery storage systems, and heat pumps. You wouldn't pay anything up front, which is nice, but you'd then be repaying that loan through your monthly bills over 5 to 10 years. It's essentially like getting a mortgage for your energy system, except instead of owning a house, you're owning the ability to tell your energy provider to do one. According to the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, which is quite possibly the longest department name in government history, this plan represents the biggest ever public investment to upgrade homes and tackle fuel poverty. They've added an extra £1.5 billion to the pot, bringing the total to nearly £15 billion. That's more money than some countries spend on their entire annual budget. They are promising thousands of new clean energy jobs, massive reductions in household bills, and a giant leap towards Britain's net zero targets. On paper, it sounds fantastic. In practice, though, that's where things get interesting. Let's talk about the technology itself for a second, because this isn't just about slapping a few shiny panels on your roof and calling it a day. We're talking about a complete ecosystem. Solar panels to capture energy from that famously reliable British sunshine. Battery storage systems to keep that energy for when the sun inevitably disappears behind yet another grey cloud. And heat pumps, those controversial devices that extract warmth from the air or ground and use it to heat your home, which work brilliantly in Scandinavia but have a somewhat mixed reputation here in the UK. The theory is that if you combine all three technologies in a well-insulated home, you could genuinely reduce your energy bills to zero. Nigel Banks from Octopus Energy reckons that 1 million homes with quality insulation could achieve nil bills if they installed the full package. He's even suggesting some household could save 90 quid a month by making the switch. Now, here's where the plan gets properly ambitious. Miliband isn't just targeting houses with big gardens and south-facing roofs. He wants to lift restrictions on plug-in solar panels, those portable units you can stick on balconies, patios, and flat roofs. This means people in flats, apartments, and smaller properties could potentially get in on the action too. It's democratizing solar power, making it accessible to renters and people without traditional homes. That's genuinely progressive policymaking, and it addresses one of the biggest criticisms of previous green initiatives, that they only benefited wealthy homeowners with disposable income and property assets. But, and this is a massive but, not everyone's convinced this is money well spent. Critics are having an absolute field day with this. £13 billion on solar panels when the NHS is crying out for funding, when schools are literally crumbling, when councils are going bankrupt left and right. The optics aren't exactly brilliant. And then there's the practical questions. What happens if the technology doesn't work as advertised? What if those heat pumps can't cope with a proper British winter? What if the repayment schemes saddle families with debt they can't afford? What if we just spent 13 billion quid on what amounts to the world's most expensive placebo? Conservative MPs are absolutely loving this, naturally. They've been waiting for Labour to stumble on something, anything, and Miliband's just handed them a £13 billion gift wrapped in solar panels. They are pointing out that this is the same Ed Miliband who proposed an energy price freeze back in 2013 that never materialized. The same bloke who confidently predicted a cost of living crisis under the Tories and then watched his own party struggle with exactly the same issues. The attack lines write themselves. Ed Miliband. Wrong on energy then, wrong on energy now. You can practically see the campaign posters already. And this is where Keir Starmer enters the picture, looking about as comfortable as a cat in a bathtub. The Prime Minister has built his entire political brand on being sensible, measured, and financially responsible. Here's Mr. Steady Hand, the grown-up in the room, the man who's supposed to make Labour electable by not doing anything too radical or expensive. And then Ed Miliband rocks up with a £15 billion spending spree on solar panels and heat pumps. It's like asking your responsible friend to hold your pint while you go to the loo, and coming back to find they bought everyone in the pub a round of champagne. Sources close to number 10 are reportedly less than thrilled, with whispers suggesting that Starmer's team thinks Miliband has overreached spectacularly. The tension between fiscal responsibility and environmental ambition has always been Labour's trickiest tightrope walk, and right now, Ed Miliband's doing backflips on that rope while juggling solar panels. Starmer knows that voters care about climate change, absolutely, but they also care about their immediate financial situation. If this plan works, Miliband looks like a visionary and Starmer looks like the leader who backed bold action. If it fails, if those promised zero bills never materialize, if the scheme ends up costing families more than it saves, then Labour's credibility on economic management evaporates faster than morning dew under a solar panel on a sunny day. The really fascinating bit is the politics of timing. We're not far into Labour's term, and already there's internal friction over one of their flagship policies. In opposition, it's easy to promise the world. In government, you've actually got to deliver, and delivering is expensive, complicated, and full of opportunities to cock things up spectacularly. Miliband's rushing to unveil these plans, presumably to show momentum and commitment to Labour's green agenda, but that urgency might be making Starmer nervous. Politicians who move fast and break things tend to, break things, and broken things cost money to fix. Then there's a question of whether British homes are actually ready for this technology. Heat pumps work best in well-insulated properties, but millions of British homes have insulation that would make a sieve look watertight. Installing a heat pump in a drafty Victorian terrace is like trying to heat the outdoors. You'll burn through electricity without getting much warmth in return, and suddenly that zero-bill promise looks about as realistic as Ed Miliband becoming the next James Bond. The plan does mention supporting insulation improvements, but that's yet another cost, yet another complication, yet another opportunity for delays and budget overruns. And let's be honest about British weather for a second. Solar panels in Britain are a bit like opening an ice cream shop in the Arctic. Technically possible, occasionally brilliant, but fundamentally challenged by the local conditions. We're not exactly blessed with year-round sunshine. We get about 4.5 days of proper sun per year, and 3 of those are bank holidays when everyone's got the day off anyway. The rest of the time, it's overcast, drizzly, or what the Met Office diplomatically calls partly cloudy, which is code for grey and miserable. Solar panels work in British conditions. Absolutely they do, but they are never going to produce the same output as they would in Spain or Australia. That means longer payback periods, smaller savings, and more disappointed homeowners wondering why their zero bill still shows numbers above zero. Octopus Energy's involvement is interesting too. They are one of the most innovative energy companies in Britain, genuinely pushing boundaries with flexible tariffs and smart technology. But they are also a private company looking to make profit, and this scheme potentially creates millions of new customers dependent on their services. There's nothing wrong with that inherently, but it does raise questions about whether this is genuinely about helping households or about creating a massive new market for energy companies and solar installers. Follow the money, as they say, and in this case, the money's flowing in some very specific directions. The politics of energy have never been more contentious. We had years of rising bills, energy companies making record profits while families choose between heating and eating, and endless debates about fracking, nuclear power, wind farms, and everything in between. Energy policy is where economics meets environmentalism meets everyday life, and getting it wrong has immediate, visible, painful consequences. Miliband knows this, which is presumably why he's going so big so fast. He wants to change the narrative, to give people tangible benefits from green policy rather than just lectures about carbon emissions. That's actually quite smart politics, assuming it works. This is British politics in 2026, ambitious, messy, expensive, and absolutely fascinating. Whether this scheme becomes Miliband's triumph or his bacon sandwich moment remains to be seen. Whether Starmer backs him to the hilt or quietly shuffles him sideways depends entirely on how the next few months unfold.